Now.
So again, we're in
Okay.
Masechta Shabbos, Lamed Zayin 37. We're in the sugya of kira, of putting something on a stovetop, and we're trying to analyze the Mishnah. The Gemara says, "Lo'ilam emel chalachzir tznan." That really the Mishnah is not talking about shehiyah, that is leaving something that had been there from Erev Shabbos, but rather returning it. The chesuri mechsera, and there's some words missing. V'hachiktani, you have to amend the Mishnah to make it like this. Kira shisikuhu bakashu v'gavava, a stovetop that the fuel that was straw, which we said is not a very effective fuel. So machzirin alei tafshil, you're allowed to even return a cooked dish on Shabbos. That's with straw and gavava. But the gaves uva'etzim, which we said was like olive branches and wood, so lo yachzir ad sheyigrof ad shitena se'efer. You could do chazar, but you'd have to either remove the coals or cover them with ash. Avalisha is mashim, but that's regarding chazara. But if you hadn't touched the tafshil and it had been there from Erev Shabbos and it continued to be there, you could leave it there. Afal pi she'ena gorfeina kotu, even though you had not removed the coals or covered them. But it's not all food. Mahin mashim, what would they be allowed to leave? Beishamayomim chamin, only hot water, where, as we said, it continues to evaporate, so he's not going to come to stoke the coals and be oiver bishul mamish, be a dayim. So that you'd be allowed to eat mashav, lo tafshil. But a kugel or a chulent, where the longer you cook it, the better it tastes. So you might be incentivized to turn the coals. So that you're not allowed to leave there. Beis Hillel, in this version of the Mishnah, would allow you to do shehiyah both for chamin and tafshil. And when we talk about chazar, lav divrei hakol, chazar is also not according to everybody. You're allowed to remove something from the kira on Shabbos, but you can't return it. So the Gemara has successfully deflected the attempt to prove that the Mishnah was only dealing with shehiyah. Rather, this version with the chesur mesra is with chazar as well. Toshma. Just the Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chai and Reish Nun Gimel says, Mutter lachzer is tafshil lekira grufa ketuma. You could return a tafshil back to a stovetop that's got the coals removed or that it's been covered. Af b'Shabbos im lo shav and it's not named midai, as long as it didn't get too cool. That so that's the concept of grufa ketuma, is like covering our stovetops like we do with a blech. Toshma. All of this discussion is lo shanu elak al gaba. That's putting it on top of the stovetop. Avalitocha, the stovetop, the way they had it was a little different than ours. It was it was sunken in so that the tafshil could go into it completely. You wouldn't be able to put it within the sort of the receptacle of the stovetop. So if the Mishnah is talking about chazara, so hainu deshani bein tochel al gabo. So that's why there's a nafka mina and halacha between leaving it on top of it or putting it inside of it. Because by doing chazara into something that has coals, there's a chashash of chilul Shabbos. So that's why you might only be allowed to put it on top. Mor says that's no raya. Mi savris Rav Chelbo Aresha Koi. Perhaps Rav Chelbo, when he made this comment here about Gabo versus Tocha, is not going on the Resha. It's only maybe he's only going on the Sefer, on the part of Uveisil Oimim Af Machziri. Rav Chelbo Lo Yishon Al Gabo. That when, but not regarding Shehiyah. That when Beis Hillel allows to machzir, that's Lo Yishon Al Gabo. Avol Tocha Asr. But they would not allow chazara when it sort of went deeper into the kira where there's more of a chashash of vishu. Toshma. So come in here, right? Shtei kiros hamatimos. You have two stovetops that are next to each other. Achaz grufa ketuma. One of them had the coals removed. Achashena grufa vena ketuma. So mashna gabi grufa ketuma. So you could leave something on the stovetop that had its coals removed. Ve'ein mashna she'ena grufa vena ketuma. But you could not leave a tavshil on the stovetop that was not prepared in that way. And you couldn't just leave anything. Mahein mashim. Beis Shammai omrim lo klum. In this price, Beis Shammai doesn't allow you to leave anything. Not chamin, not tavshil. Ubeis Hillel omrim chamim v'tavshil. Chamin avalo tavshil. Only hot water, not tavshil. Then, continuing the price, okar. If the tavshil had been removed, divra kol lo yachzir. Even Beis Hillel would not allow it to be machzir. In this case, we have the two kiros next to each other. Div Rab Meir. That's how Rab Meir learns. Rab Yehuda Omer. In this case, Beis Shammai Omrim chamin avlo tavshil, like our Mishnah, that Beis Shammai would allow hot water but not tavshil. Beis Hillel Omrim chamin v'tavshil. And continued the price of Beis Shammai Omrim noitlin avlo machzirin. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda. You could remove but not be choizer. Beis Hillel Omrim af machzirin. Now the analysis. This whole price only makes sense if we're talking about a dish that you left there from Erev Shabbos, you never touched it, and you left it there. Then Masnis and Mani, then who is our Mishnah? Our Mishnah that we opened up our Perek Shlishi with would be exactly the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, the way this price learned it. But if our Mishnah, you're telling me, is talking about Chazar not Shehiyah, Masnis and Mani, then our Mishnah doesn't fit Lo Rabbi Yehuda, Lo Rabbi Meir, Lo Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir, Kasha Beis Shammai B'chada. As we said, our Mishnah didn't say Beis Shammai doesn't allow you to do anything, right? So that's Kasha Beis Shammai, one version, because our Mishnah seemed to understand that Beis Hillel would allow you both, but this Bryce said only Chamin. And Rabbi Yehuda, and if you're going to tell me that the Bryce is like Rabbi Yehuda, Kasha Grufa Ketuma, because our Mishnah said you're only allowed to do these things if you had removed the coals. This Bryce doesn't say that. So again, it's an attempt by the Gemara to say that our Mishnah is Shehiyah. The Gemara says no. It's not. Again, the Mishnah can be only Chazar. The Tana didan something like Rabbi Bechada, who Poligale Bechada. he will agree with Rabbi Yehuda in one aspect. Upala galei b'chadi argues the other aspect. Several Rabbi b'chadi b'chamin v'tavshil v'noit l'machziri. The part that we learned with that you're allowed to do both chamin and tavshil according to Beis Hillel, and that you could be noit l'machzir. That's where he agrees. Upala galei b'chadi, but he argues with Rabbi Yehuda. Ilu tana didam savar la shois aval pisheina garfakot. Our Mishnah allowed you to do shehiyah even though you had not prepared the coals anyway. Rabbi Yehuda savar delicious nami. Rabbi Yehuda will hold that for shehiyah gar v'katum in ilolo, that to do shehiyah you'd also have to do gruf of a ketum. Okay, iboilu. Mahu, you're talking about a kira that had not had its coals covered. Mahu lismach ba. Could you lean one of your dish against the kira, not necessarily place it on top or in? You can't put it on top of the stovetop. You can't put it within, but maybe next to shapir dami, that works. Or maybe we'll say, no, you can't even be soymech. That's if it's not goref v'katum. If it's goref v'katum, we'll see what it is. But we're talking about a case where it's not goref v'katum. Fine. Maybe you can't put it on top or put it inside, but maybe next to you could, even if it's not gruf of a ketuma. So toshma, shtei kiros matimos. Again, we're talking about that case where you have the two stovetops that are side by side. Achas gruf of ketuma, v'achas sheni gruf of ketuma. One had been removed of its coals, the other was not. So ma'ashna gabi gruf of ketuma. You could do shehiyah, which is to leave it on the stovetop that had been prepared. V'afagav the kosolik lehev lemidich. Even though there is some heat arising from the other stovetop. So l'chora, that's like samuch. So l'chora, that seems to suggest that that you can do smicha. So the Gemara says, no, dilmashani hasam the kiven di medalya. Maybe since this here that you put the pot on top and the avir is shoilet a little bit, so it's being cooled off a little bit by the ambient wind. Maybe that's why it's mutter there. But in a regular case where you're just leaning it and it's not elevated a little bit, you would not be allowed. So no raya from there. Toshma, Tom Rav Safra Rav Chia, Tom of an islapta. If you have removed the coals and prepared it by covering it, so somchin law, you can do smicha, umakaimen aleh, and if there's a tavshil on it, you could leave it there. And noitlin mimena, you could remove it on Shabbos, umachzirin law. Shma mina. So from here we see a raya that lismoch nami, that if you want to not put it on top of the stovetop, but just lean it next to, you can do it, but ketama in, lo ketama lo. It depends on whether you've covered or removed the coals. Says the Gemara, ula tamech, according to your reasoning, noitlin mimena diktani, that which it says you're allowed to remove it. So ketama in, lo ketama lo. Why should that depend on whether you've removed the coals? You should be able to remove it even if it's not ketuma. Ella tana noitlin mishum machzirin. It's just stylistic. Noitil goes along with machzirin, and hachanami tana sonchun mishum makayim. So hachiyash, is that comparable? It's not comparable. Hasam noitlin machzirin b'chad makamu. When we talk about removing and putting it back, we're talking about putting it back to the same place. So then Tana Noit the Mishra Machzir. Elahacha, but smicha is putting it in a different place. It's not on top of the same thing. Being Makayim is leaving a dish on a stovetop in the same place that it was there Erev Shabbos. Smicha means leaning it against the oven or the stovetop in a different place. Okay, so there's no raya from there. So the Gemara wants a summary. My Havi Allah, after all this discussion, where are we? So Torshma. This seems to be the final version of the Gemara. Here, Kira Shisika Bagefas Veitzim. You have a stovetop that the fuel was wood, soymchinla. You're allowed to put it next to it. But the Ein Makayinin, Elam came Grufa Ketuma. You may not leave it on the Kira from Erev Shabbos unless you've removed the coals or covered it. Period. And it says in Shulchan Aruch, Kira shesiku begefus ve'etzim, af she'ena grufa ketuma, mutter lasim b'tzida tavshil. Even though you haven't done grufa ketuma, you could leave it on the side of a kira. But v'nohagim lahatir af b'yom Shabbos. The Ramos says the meaning is you can do it even on Shabbos. Put it next to it. But the Rambam and the Ramban are oyser. Yesha oysrim. V'roi lachush lekach. Uva gruf of the ketum l'dasa kol mutter. According to all the shitas, if you've covered it, it's all mutter. To put it next to do smicha. Okay, that seems to be, and okay, continuing the Baraisa. Kecholim she'amamu, coals that are sort of winking out, right? They're cooling off. Or you've put on top of it some thin flax. Harehi kikatuma. That's already considered ketuma. So that's sort of the technicality of how they did ketuma then with coals. Amrav Yitzchak bar Nachmani Amrav Oshaya. Ketama v'huvara. You've removed the coals, and they've sort of lit up again. Huvara. So you can do shehiyah with hot water that's been heated up to where you want the hot water to be. Like Rashi said, you're not going to come to stoke the coals, which would be an Isser Bishul, because the hot waters are, if any more is going to evaporate, you're not happy with that. And Tafshil Shabishal Kotzorcho, and a dish that has been cooked completely. So Shmamina, Mitztamek v'yafalo mutter. Now, Mitztamek v'yafalo is a concept that even though it's a tafshil, that the more you cook it, it's going to make it taste better. It's still mutter to do shehiyah. And we're not going to be choishesh that you're going to stir the coals. That the heter makes no difference whether it's a tafshil that's mitztamek v'yafalo or mitztamek v'ra'alo. We're going to see that Rav Oshaya permits no matter what kind of tafshil it is. But we're going to see that there's other manda armin that say that you're only allowed to leave a tafshil that's ra'ala, that the longer it cooks there, it's going to taste bad. Then you're allowed to leave it because you're not going to come to do chitui of the coals. But Rav Oshaya makes no difference. But Shai Hacha, the Ketama. Here, again, there's no raya because we're not talking about Eina Ketuma. This is a case of Ketuma. where it was covered. So if it's covered, you already told me that it's mutter if it's ketuma. Why? So why would it be a case of ketuma? The case is huvera itztrachalei. The chiddush is because you told me this is a case where the coals got lit up again. We go back to its original state, and maybe we do have to worry. Kamash Malon that Mabashaya matirs even in such a case, and even by mitztamik v'yafim. Rav Yochanan, Tama v'huvara, you covered it, and it got lit up again. So since it's ketuma, we're going to see Rav Yochanan is matir. Mashna lechamin shehu chamukot tzorchan. You can do shehiyah. That means from Erev Shabbos, you can even leave it there. That's regarding water that's been heated up fully. V'tavshil shebishal kot tzorchan. And a dish that's been cooked completely. You notice it's not k'maichel ben drusoy. It's fully cooked. V'afilu gecholim shel roisim. And even coals that have lit up again and could burn for a long time. What does we see from Rav Yochanan? Shmamina mitztamik v'yafel mutter, that even though it's a dish, that the longer it cooks, the better it tastes, he still matters it. But that's only a raya, shani achadik tiktama. That's because it's got covered. But there's no raya that if it was not covered, you would allow a dish that was mitztamik v'yafel. The Gemara first again asks the same question it did before. I mean, if it's covered with ketuma, so my lamema, you already told me we finished the last piece of Gemara with the maskana that if it's groof of the ketuma, you can do it. So, however, says the Gemara, my lamema, right? My lamema, what's the chiddush? Hoover is again, because these are coals that lit up. Well, hainu hach, isn't that the same thing that we just learned from Rabbi Shaya? So no, because gechalim shel roisem, the gechalim shel roisem, I guess it's these are coals that could even burn longer and longer, not just huvara. So even in such a case, the ketima process permits to use a tafshil that's even mitztamik the yafim. Okay, weiter. Rav Yochanan, ki rosh esikut bagafus veitzim. So we're back to our stovetop. The fuel is the problematic fuel, right? Not the kash, but rather the olive branch and the wood. So, mashna le'achamin shlo hukmukol tzorcho. You have hot water that hasn't been heated up completely, but you can do shehiyah. V'tavshel shlo bishul kol tzorcho. And you can even leave a dish that hasn't been fully cooked, or kar, if you remove it. So on Shabbos lo yachzir ad sheyigrof ad shitenefer. For chazara, you have to do grufa ketuma. And therefore, what does Rav Yochanan hold? Ksavar, masnisin is lachzir tnan. Our Mishnah was not shehiyah, but chazara. Avalishos mashna aval pishena gorof in a kotu. So to leave some, like for example, Nibod Yom from Erev Shabbos, you have a dish sitting on the stovetop. As long as you don't touch it, you could leave it, even if it was not Gorf or Kat. On the Rava, Tarvayu Tanani. We learned both of these in a Mishnah. The Lasha is Tanina, says, Ein Noistin Sapas, V'sochataner im Chashech. You can't put a baking bread into a tan, into an oven, as it becomes Shabbos, v'lo chara gabi gecholim. That's some kind of cake on the coals. Ela kadesh yikrumu paneh. Only if it had fully baked. Kirmu paneh is like, think about a challah that gets really crispy on the outside. It's already gotten crispy on the outside, it's already fully baked. Meaning you can't do it if it's not karmu paneh. Have karmu paneh, sorry. So that's even leaving it there. We're not talking about chazar. Lahazar nami tanina, says Rav. In terms of chazara, we also have a brisa, because Beis Hillel oimrim af machzirin, that you're allowed to, if you've removed it, you could put it back in. Meaning, as long as there's been karmu paneh, ad kan lekosher Beis Hillel ela begrufa ketuma. But Beis Hillel only allows you to do this again if the coals are covered with ash or removed. Aval b'she'ena grufa ketuma lo. But he doesn't permit if the coals are completely open. Rav Sheshes Nami diuk edematisim kamash malan. He learned the same diuk from our Mishnah, and not to tell me some kind of new halacha other than this one. Okay. Again, we're dealing with a stovetop, not a tanur. And the fuel is the wood. It says, you can do shehiyah with a tafshil, it's been fully baked. Hot water that's been fully cooked. Even if it's a dish, that the longer you leave it there, the better it tastes. How could you say that? Rav and Shmuel held that you could not leave a tafshil there if the longer you cook it, the better it tastes, because you're going to come to stir the coals. Amar lei, to less ana yadod Amar Rav Yosef Rav Shmuel. Do you think I don't know this din of mitzdamek v'yafla aser? Ki kamina lach Rav Yochanan kamina. Rav Yochanan doesn't hold it Rav Shmuel. I'm telling you the din of Rav Yochanan. I understand that Rav and Shmuel argued with that concept. Amar Rav Ashi atun de mekarvis Rav Shmuel. You who were close to Rav Shmuel, alvidu Rav Shmuel. You did like Rav Shmuel, that they did not allow a tafshil that was mitzdamek v'yafalo. I'm not, but we, Navik Rav Yochanan, we're going to do like Rav Yochanan who permitted it. Amli about Rav Yosef, Ma'u Lashois. What's the din of Shehiyah? Omer Le, what do you mean? Rav Yehuda Mashu Levachel. Rav Yehuda kept it there from Erev Shabbos and ate. Omer Le, that's no raya. Barmined Rav Yehuda, the kiva de Mesukenu. He was a chola sheyesh po sakana. Afilu b'Shabbos nami shar lemevid le. He would allow you to do this even mamish on Shabbos because it's pikuach nefesh. But leave Allah who are healthy mind. Omer Le besura mashu. In the city of Surah, right? There were two cities, Surah and Pumbedisa. In Surah, they allowed shehiyah. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Morei de Uvdahava, he was like the Morei de Asra. Umashu levachil, he allowed shehiyah and they ate from it. On Rav Ashi, Ka'ina kamed Ravuna. Now you notice there's a progression here. We went from Rav Yochanan to Rav Shmuel, now with Rav Ashi, who's the final editor of the Gemara. So we're in a much later stage. And here we're describing the various minhagim of what eventually came down and how they were noying. On Rav Ashi, Kaim the Kamed Ravuna, I ate with Ravuna, Vishorin like Kasa Daharsana. Kasa Daharsana was like an oatmeal. It was some kind of breakfast dish. Rashi says, Dagim Hamu Vishalim Bishamim Bekemach. They would cook, I guess, like fish and chips, right? Cooked fish in their fat, covered with kemach, covered with like flour.
Fish ash.
And they would eat that with shehiyah. And now we didn't know why they permitted. Was this a dish that got better with cooking? And he allowed it even though, or mishum dekiva the ispe micha mitztamik v'ralohu, since there was flour there, and like fish by itself, the longer you cook it, the better it is. But flour, the longer you cook it, the worse it is. So maybe he only permitted it because it was a kind of dish that the longer you cook, the worse it is, and that's going to disincentivize you from stirring the coals. So the Gemara is not clear, but the Shulchan Aruch paskins, mitztamik v'yafalo asur la'ashos ala eish. Certainly a dish that gets better with cooking, you would not be able to put on the fire. We're talking about a kira that was not roof of a ketoma. But if umitztamik v'ralo mutter. But if you have a dish that gets worse, you could leave it even on the fire. That means even if it didn't have a blech on it, you'd be allowed to keep it. That's not necessarily our halacha, because we're probably machmir as a low plug. But the Shulchan Aruch says that a mitztamik v'yafalo you would not be able to use directly on the fire. You could if it was covered, like we said, with grufa ketuma, you could use it. Rav Nachman, mitztamik v'yafalo asur. Rav Nachman says a dish that gets better, you could not use. We're talking about if it's not grufa v'ketuma. Mitztamik v'ralo mutter, even if it was not grufa v'ketuma. Klala de milsa, called ispe micha, if it has got flour, it's mitztamik v'ralo. It's a kind of dish that the longer you keep it, the worse it gets. Levar mitavshil delifta, except some kind of turnip dish, which had flour in it. That was a dish that I guess even if it had flour in it, the longer you cooked it, the better it was.
Ernie,
yes.
I don't understand the nafkamina for getting worse or getting better. The whole point is you're worried about that they're going to stir the coals. So what?
Right. So Walter,
bad or good?
I'll tell you the nafkamina. If the dish, the longer it cooks, tastes better, you're going to come to stir that coal because you want it to cook more. But a dish that the longer it cooks on those coals, it's going to taste worse. You're not going to leave it alone. That's why there's enough Rollo.
Some people like stuff that's burnt. Some people like burnt stuff. So it's going to get worse because it's going to shrivel up, like we said before. And he likes it when it's burnt. Some people like it rare. I don't know what it is. So I don't understand enough kamina. Maybe in those days it was different.
Yeah, and I would say you're right. We're not talking about we're talking about what most people were knowing. So if most people would consider it, it's not based on each individual. I agree with you. It cannot be halacha based on each person's individual taste buds. No, it can't be that way. It would have to be the way what the normal society would consider that this dish has now been ruined. That's how I would explain Rala. It means everybody would hold. Otherwise, your point is very well taken. It can't be an individual thing. It would have to be that it's very well accepted that this dish nobody would eat by the longer it cooks. Then that would be a disincentive to the person doing chitui. It's a very good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Now here we're describing a little bit maybe what the cultural norms were. That if there was meat in the dish, that's a less stomach viralo. Means meat would make it continued yafalo even if there was a little flour. And when you told me it got better, even though there's meat in there, with meat, that's eladelo kavela la'orchim. That's you have an invited guest. Maybe because that means if you have guests coming, even if there was meat there, if there was flour there, the longer you cooked it, you wouldn't serve it to guests because I guess it would become burnt. Like a burnt chul. Like if you have what is it like oatmeal? I remember going to camp, and they would cook the oatmeal too long, and it would be burnt. You couldn't eat it, mamish. So here, I guess if you're inviting orchim, you wouldn't serve that. But lafta dice of a tamri. Now that's figs, some kind of cereal and dates. is mitztamik v'ralahen. These kind of things that are, when they're added to a dish, then the longer you cook it, these are aspects that are going to make it bad. And this helps define for us how in that time they viewed certain foods, where the longer you cooked it, the worse it got. Okay. Yeshkoyach. Well, so again, the schedule is the Navi Shir tonight.